Picture this: two farmers, same county, same rainfall, same seed catalog. One of them spends $400 every spring on fertilizer, and still watches his soil get grayer, harder, and less productive every single year. The other one spent $2 once, 7 years ago, and his beds are darker, looser, and more alive this spring than they have ever been. I know which farmer you want to be, and I know why nobody ever told you how. What you are about to hear is not a gardening tip. It is not a hack. It is not something from a YouTube thumbnail. It is a practice so old, so proven, and so permanently effective that entire civilizations built their food security on it for over 2,000 years. It was working in the Amazon basin before Columbus was born. It was quietly recorded by American farmers in the mid-1800s. It was studied, confirmed, and then professionally ignored by the very institutions that were supposed to teach it to you. By the end of this video, you will know exactly what it is, exactly how to make it for almost nothing, and exactly why it was never in the brochure your county extension office handed you. Stay with me. This one changes things. I want to tell you about a retired school teacher in rural Tennessee named Walter Greer. Walter is not a scientist. He is not a homesteader in Thrinsa. He does not have a merchandise store. What Walter has is 40 years of watching a tuica vegetable plot slowly give up. He tried compost. He tried crop rotation. He tried every branded bag on the shelf at the farm supply store and watched his soil get harder every season like it was turning to pavement underneath him. Then his neighbor, a quiet man in his 70s who had farmed the same quarter-acre since before. Walter moved to the county, handed him a coffee can full of something black, and told him to work it into his beds before the first frost. Walter thought it was ash. It was not ash. By the following June, Walter's tomato plants were 2 feet taller than anything he had grown in for decades. The soil under his feet had changed texture. It crumbled in his hands instead of clumping. He went back to his neighbor and asked what that black powder actually was. The man shrugged and said his father called it earth medicine. His grandfather called it the same thing. Walter eventually found a name for it in a research paper from Cambridge that had been sitting behind an academic paywall for years. The name was Biochar. But here is the thing. The name is almost beside the point, because the knowledge itself is thousands of years older than the word. In 1871, a British naturalist traveling the Rio Negro, tributary of the Amazon, wrote something in his field journal that did not make sense to him. He described stretches of earth so deeply black they looked almost painted. While the surrounding jungle floor was thin, acidic, and pale orange, these patches were 2 and 3 feet deep, crumbling, alive with worms, and growing crops that dwarfed everything around them. The local people called the ground terra-esque, dark earth. He sent soil samples to England. They sat in a museum crate for decades. In 1966, a soil scientist working out of a Dutch university finally got access to a collection of those samples and ran proper analysis. What he found rewrote the assumptions of modern soil science, quietly, in a monograph that most agricultural colleges never assigned. The dark earth was not naturally occurring. It had been deliberately created. The tribes of the pre-Columbian Amazon had spent generations building their own soil from the ground up using 3 ingredients that cost them nothing: crushed charcoal from their cooking fires, composted organic material, and broken fragments of fired clay and animal bone. They were not farming on good soil. They were manufacturing good soil. And the most staggering part, the detail that makes modern soil scientists either very excited or very quiet depending on who is signing their funding, is what happened to the plots where this practice stopped 1,000 years ago. Those same plots today, right now, still outperform the natural jungle soil around them. One application, one time, and the ground kept getting better for 1,000 years without anyone adding a thing. That's it for just a moment. Now, here is the part most people never connect. This was not only Amazon knowledge. In 1853, a German-American farmer in the limestone hills of central Pennsylvania wrote a letter to his brother-in-law in Ohio that has been sitting in the archives of a historical society in Lancaster County ever since. In that letter, he described what he called verkalt erde, charred earth, a soil amendment his family had brought as a practice from the old country and continued on their new land. He described burying crushed charcoal with stable leavings around his fruit trees in autumn. He noted that those trees had not needed any additional feeding in 11 years. He thought nothing of it. It was simply what his father had taught him. By 1900, that knowledge was effectively gone from mainstream American farming. Not because it stopped working, because something more profitable replaced it. In 1909, a chemist in Germany developed a process for synthesizing nitrogen fertilizer from atmospheric gas and industrial heat. Within 15 years, American farm policy was being quietly shaped by the companies commercializing that process. A farmer who built his own soil with charcoal and compost was a farmer who did not buy a single bag from 1920 onward. That was the problem. Not for the farmer, for the companies. The extension bulletins changed. The university curricula changed. The advice coming out of the land-grant colleges, many of them receiving industry support, changed. And within a single generation, a practice that had fed people for 2 millennia simply stopped being taught. Alright, here is the part that matters. Because knowing the history is satisfying. But doing this in your own backyard this weekend is the point. You need 4 things. A metal container with a lid, dry hardwood, an open fire, and time. That is it. Go to any hardware store or use what you already have. A standard steel trash can, 20 gallons or larger, with a fitted metal lid. Not plastic. Metal. Take a drill or a nail and punch 5 or 6 small holes in the lid, each one roughly the size of your pinky finger. Fill the can loosely with dry hardwood. Oak is ideal. Maple works well. Hickory is excellent. Old fruit tree branches from your last pruning are perfect. You want pieces no longer than your forearm and as dry as you can get them. Avoid pine or any soft resinous wood if you can. The resin produces a murkier char that takes longer to charge properly. Now build a solid hardwood fire on bare ground. Let it get going properly. You want real heat, not a smolder. Set the filled, sealed trash can directly into the coals. The holes in the lid allow the wood gas inside to vent out and burn off. That is what you will see, small jets of flame from the lid holes, as the pyrolysis begins. What is happening inside that can is the same thing that has happened in oxygen earth kilns for thousands of years. The wood is cooking without combusting. The carbon structure is locking into a permanent lattice. After roughly 90 minutes to 2 hours, the flames from the lid holes will reduce and stop. That is your signal. Using heat-resistant gloves, remove the can from the fire. Flip it upside down on bare dirt to seal the holes completely. Walk away. Leave it overnight. Do not open it early. Do not rush this part. In the morning, you will have a can of pure lightweight black charcoal, jet black, clean, and completely odorless. One burn from a standard 20-gallon can produces enough material to permanently amend roughly 150 to 200 square feet of garden bed. But here is where most people who buy the commercial bags go wrong, and why those bags are largely a waste of money. Raw charcoal is not biochar yet. Raw charcoal added directly to garden soil will actually pull nutrients away from your plants for the first season while it charges itself at their expense. This is the step the $40 bag skip, and the step that gives the whole practice a bad reputation among people who tried it once and saw nothing. You have to charge it first. Here is how. Take a piece of scrap lumber and crush your cool charcoal until most of it is the size of small pea gravel or finer. Dump it into a 5-gallon bucket. Cover it completely with liquid. The best options are diluted compost tea, water that has been steeped over finished compost for 3 days, or water mixed with aged manure from chickens or rabbits. Both are loaded with the microbial life and soluble nutrients that will colonize the charcoal's pore structure. The reason this works is physics. Biochar under a microscope looks like a sponge made of carbon tunnels. The surface area of a single gram of properly made biochar is larger than a tennis court. Every pore that gets colonized during charging becomes permanent habitat for the fungi, bacteria, and microorganisms that make soil biologically active. Stir the bucket once a day. Let it soak for a full 2 weeks minimum. After 2 weeks, drain it and work 1 generous handful per square foot into the top 4 inches of your bed. Done. Not done for this season. Done permanently. Now here's the part I want you to stay for. Because this is what separates a good result from a generational one. The Amazon tribes did not use charcoal alone. The soil scientists who analyzed the ancient dark earth plots found 2 additional components mixed in that most modern practitioners never mention: crushed fired clay and calcined bone. Bone that has been placed in a hot fire until it turns white and crumbles is called calcined bone. It is slow-release phosphorus and calcium in a form that does not wash away. It bonds with the soil matrix and keeps feeding plants for decades. Fired clay, the kind from an old broken terracotta pot, a cracked garden urn, or a piece of salvaged red clay brick, provides something called cation exchange capacity. That is the soil's ability to grab onto nutrients and hold them instead of letting them leach away with every rainfall. Together, these 3 materials create a self-reinforcing system. The biochar holds water and hosts biology. The bone feeds the biology slowly over years. The clay holds everything in place against the rain. Here's what this costs you on a weekend. Every chicken bone, turkey carcass, or beef bone your family generates, save them. Toss them into the fire during your biochar burn. They come out white and crumbly. Crush them with a hammer. Find any old cracked terracotta pot in your garage or a broken red clay brick at a salvage yard. Break it into coarse grit with the same hammer. Mix 1 part crushed bone, 1 part crushed clay, 8 parts charged biochar. Work the blend into your soil. That is it. That is the whole recipe. The same one being grown over in the Amazon right now on plots that were first amended before the Norman conquest of England. Here is what I want you to think about before you close this video. Next, spring's fertilizer bill. You will not have one. The spring after that, gone. The decade of watching your soil slowly compact and gray out, over dependency on products tied to petrochemical prices you have no control over, finished. The weekend you build 1 trash can burn in your backyard and save a bucket of bones. You did not have a bad garden because you were not trying hard enough. You had a bad garden because the information that would have solved it permanently was quietly moved off the curriculum about 100 years ago. It was never a secret of nature. It was a secret of business. A Pennsylvania German farmer knew it in 1853. Amazon tribes built civilizations on it for 2,000 years. A handful of soil scientists confirmed it in peer-reviewed studies, but never made the evening news. And now you know it. Drop a comment below and tell me what would you have on hand. Oak maple. Old apple branches from your fall pruning. I read every single one and I want to know what you are working with. And if you want to know what comes next, the next video is about a single mineral amendment. The old-timers added directly to their planting holes that made transplant shock almost disappear permanently. It costs nothing. Most people walk right past it. To give back the information that should never have been taken from you. I will see you in the next one.